You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor ceramic hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor ceramic hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor ceramic hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor ceramic hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor ceramic hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor ceramic hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. see the most exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You see the most exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You see the most exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You see the most exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You see the most exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You see the most exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. see almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. see the most exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. See the most exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. See the most exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. See the most exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. See the most exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. See the most exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. sponsor Ceramic Hair have been a part of this competition. They'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair have been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and we thank you for joining us here in round 3 of this particular series in our continued JSRA Pace season. This is round 3 of the TCR Challenge at the Oschersleben racetrack in Germany. The drivers have 14 turns to negotiate over 3.7 kilometers. And we will be seeing those drivers get tested here in the continued front-wheel drive touring cars around this particular racetrack. Not much elevation change for the drivers to contend with, but certainly a challenging track with lots of hairpin corners that require very precise entry and exit and as much speed carried as is possible. That being said, we have seen some blistering times from some of these drivers already during the week's practice session, so we will see what we get come race time. My name is Chad Dillon, and once again, thank you for joining us, whether on YouTube or with our streaming partners on the SportsMax app. We will appreciate your viewership and your participation in our stream. The drivers have roughly 7 minutes and change left in the practice session, before we head into qualifying, and at that point we will see which driver can stick it on pole. The driver we are on board with, however, will not have such an opportunity, as he does have a qualifying ban. That is one Mr. Mark Anthony Eaton, and we will also be missing from this race the Colombian Luis Felipe Yil, who has received a race ban, as well as Jaden Harrison for incidents that took place between themselves with each other on track in the previous round of this series. However, that aside, we still have a fairly substantial grid, roughly 9 participants in this particular race, looking like 10 actual. Well, it is 9 at the moment. We will see if we have any last minute latecomers that will also be participating. However, let's watch and see what we get from the drivers that are present in today's race to see how they stack up in the remaining 2 rounds. Following this round, there is one more round. For now, there is another round to come later down in the year. More information on that at a later date. However, for now, there is one more round following this one at Sydney Motorsport Park that is coming at you next week, and then we have an off week before we move into the Porsche Cup that starts on May 11th. Don't worry, you will not be devoid of action in that time. We do have some drivers participating in a few endurance races that I'm sure we will be streaming from the JSRA, as they are members of the JSRA team, so be sure to stay tuned for that. And of course, for any additional information, be sure to check out our social medias on Instagram at JSRA Official, and on Facebook at the Jamaica Simulation Racing Association, as well as all our replays and highlights on YouTube at JSRA 876. So we thank you once again, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in, as we have just under 5 minutes to go in the practice session before we get into the high action qualifying session, where the drivers will be seeing who can put their car on the front row of the grid in that top spot to start the race. And from there, we have 2 races coming your way this evening, 25 minutes apiece. The second race will be a reverse grid of all the points finishers, which is the top 12, although it doesn't look like we have 12 drivers with us here this evening, so we will just get a reverse grid of the entire finishing order. Yeah, that is to say, you will be getting some high octane action here this evening. These drivers never fail to deliver come time for the race, and as you can see, some of the drivers very close together on the timing sheet. Of course, that may not be representative of where they will be come the end of this session, or even as we move into qualifying, as the track has not yet been properly rubbered in, as the servo was restarted prior to the drivers heading back out on track. So when it comes time for qualifying, once a little more rubber has been laid on the surface, the times will pick up. They may get a little bit faster, and we may see those times come right down. I believe the fastest time done so far is a very high 1 minute 32. So we can maybe see about 6/10 being shaved off these times. And of course, these drivers very famous for making me eat my words, so it's 6/10 now. By the time we get to the end of qualifying, who knows how much it will be. So of course, stay tuned so we can see what action is going to be coming our way. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are seeing the times tumbling already. Mark Anthony Eaton having put together a good first sector. Can he keep it together for the next 2 sectors to improve upon the benchmark time set by Miss Raven Plummer at 1 minute 33.5, with just under a minute and a half to go in the practice session. Once again, the practice session will end and we will move into qualifying after about a 2-minute delay. Once we are into the qualifying session, then will come 15 minutes of hard and fast action. The drivers trying to set their fastest possible lap to put themselves as high up on the grid as possible for the first race of the evening, and that race again will be determined by qualifying. And at the end of that race, the driver that sits on the front row, well, there will be a reverse grid of the finishing order, so the driver who finishes at the top will be starting in last place for the second race of the evening. Both races 25 minutes, so we have lots of action still to come your way this evening. If you are just joining us, thank you for being a part of our stream, whether it is on YouTube or on the SportsMax app. We do appreciate you choosing to spend your Saturday evening with us here at the JSRA to take in the brilliant skill of these drivers as they try their best to put themselves in the top spot in the races here this evening. And as always, a big shout out to our sponsors over at Ceramic Hair, or premium or gold sponsor for this particular season of the JSRA. We do appreciate their support and we look forward to continuing our partnership with them heading into the next few years of the JSRA as we try to make it bigger and better every year. So as we have now wrapped up the practice session, the drivers will pull back into the pits so that the servo can move into the qualifying session, where we will see who can stick their car on pole position for the first of 2 races this evening. Once we get that grid set, then we will have a few minutes before we move into the race, and that's where it will all unfold for us here this evening at the JSRA. So stick with us for a few minutes as we get prepped for the qualifying session, and we will be back with you in a moment's time.
This competition, they've been getting quite the work order. You see almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You see almost.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, as the qualifying session has begun. Kurt Moss, the first driver out of the pits to head out on his outlap before we get on to the flying laps, the first set of flying laps for the evening. So we will get an idea of which driver will be on pole position here this evening. We will see what it looks like when the first runs have concluded. Once again, we thank you for joining us. If you are joining us on YouTube or on the SportsMax app where we are streaming this evening, thank you for spending your Saturday evening with us here at the JSRA as we go racing at the Oschersleben racetrack in Germany. So as we are on the outlap, we're getting a very good look at the layout of the track. 14 turns, not much elevation change as mentioned before, pretty flat track in comparison to a lot of the others that we race at. And some high-speed sections, as is the one that Kurt is heading into right now, but lots of sweeping hairpin corners that test the driver's abilities to hit a braking point, turn in with precision, and carry as much speed through those corners as possible. During the course of this particular series, we are testing the driver's abilities in front-wheel drive vehicles, as all touring cars are front-wheel drive, and their ability to adapt to that driving style over a series of different racetracks that test the drivers in different faculties. As we see Kurt Moss there running a little bit deep through turn 2, that is the hotel corner, as he continues on his lap now, heading through the first of 3 hairpins around this track at turn 3. There he is now powering down towards the triple corner. That is actually the name of that corner, ladies and gentlemen. It is 3 right-hand kinks, left-hand kinks, my apologies, one after the other, and you try your best to take as much speed as possible through that section. Lots of time to be gained through there, as Kurt getting very aggressive there on the exit of the chicane to try and maximize his speed down the back straight before we get into a small braking zone here heading through Shell S, as he completes that now with 2 corners to go before he is the first driver to complete a flying lap, getting very aggressive there, and I think he may have just dipped outside of track limits on the exit of turn 13 there through the final corner, and we will see if that lap counts, as I do think he invalidated there on the end. He did definitely invalidate there. Mikhail Charles should be coming across the line on a 1:33.726. Again, we've seen quicker times in the practice session and throughout the course of the week. The quickest time we have seen is a 1:32.9, so we will see how close we get to that time before this qualifying session is over. Raven Plummer currently taking provisional pole away from Mikhail Charles, who managed to put together a fairly decent lap for his first run. Joshua Brady now coming through the chicane, a lot more cautious than we've seen a lot of the other drivers there through that chicane, so we will see if that is a preferred strategy as Estefano Barrero moves to the top of the timing charts. The Colombian has been rapid all season long and is continuing that form, showing that he has good pace around this circuit. With Joshua Brady, who we are still on board with, let's see where he can slot himself in with 1 corner to go. He seems to be taking much shallower lines than we've seen some of the other drivers, so clearly not thinking he needs to maximize the track in order to gain time, but let's see what that comes in at. And he invalidated somewhere despite his cautious approach, so not a time on the board yet for Joshua Brady. Kurt Moss now coming across the line on his second attempt. Does he get a cleaner lap in? He does, and it's a 1:33.4. Kurt Moss finds himself on provisional pole here with 10 minutes to go in this qualifying session. So we are 1/3 of the way through, and already we are seeing the drivers put in some times that are looking quite rapid around this circuit. Still about 5/10 in it for the drivers to find. We will see if they find it, as Kurt Moss giving us an idea of his drifting ability before heading back to the pits. Here is Joshua Brady on his second run, having invalidated the first time around. He is currently heading towards the chicane, I believe. Yes, he is. And as he goes through the chicane there, still looking quite cautious in comparison to a lot of the other drivers. Most of the drivers throwing the car through there, trying to find some time, but Joshua Brady not wanting to risk unsettling the car too much, seems to be a lot more cautious through that section. Again, we will not see Mark Anthony Eaton in this particular section. Mark Anthony Eaton receiving a quali ban based on some incidents that took place in the previous round at Sachsenring, and has to sit out the qualifying session and start from the back of the field. But here's Joshua Brady through the final corner. What can he give us? It is a 136.4, well off the pace of the top drivers. That's about 3 seconds adrift of Kurt Moss, who currently sits on provisional pole, with Estefano Barrera less than a tenth behind, and Raven Plummer, Mikhail Charles in the moment, finding a time there, a 133.3. And I was having a conversation with Mikhail before the start of this session, and he was desperately trying to find some time, and he needed, I think he was looking for 5/10s. He seemed to have found at least one of those 5/10s, and still 4/10s out there for Mikhail Charles to find to match the best time we have seen all week. But the top 4 drivers separated by just about 0.2 of a second, already promising a great race there between those 4 drivers. Daniel Velez down in 5th, another one of the rapid Colombians, as Estefano Barrero showing his hand, doing a time of 133.2. These rivals are trading blows at the moment, showing us that they will go to any lengths to find the pace in order to be at the top. Mikhail Charles at current doing a personal best first sector. It is purple, but it is not the fastest sector 1 we have seen overall, and no improvement there in sector 2, but he is still on course to improve. Can he get himself any closer to Estefano Barrera? Needs a very good exit here in the final few corners, coming through the last corner now, getting the power down. What can Mikhail Charles give us? Does he get closer to Barrera? Coming across the line, he improves, but not enough to put himself on the top step of the podium. Estefano Barrera still 700ths clear of Mikhail Charles here as we continue through this qualifying session with about 6.5 minutes to go. Looking up and down the order, again, the top 4 really not separated by much. 0.2 of a second separate the top 4 drivers, and Daniel Velez may have some time up his sleeve that he can use to match the other drivers out on circuit. Raven Plummer here sitting in 3rd, is also another one of the rapid drivers, and as I say that, she is purple in sector 1, best of all so far, and is up 1.3 up 1/10 of a second through sector 1. My apologies there, ladies and gentlemen. And as she heads towards the chicane, can she maximize her exit here? Looking quite aggressive in comparison to some of the other drivers we have seen, although still slightly more cautious than others yet. So we will see if that is the approach to be taken. Cautious aggression through that section of the racetrack as she gets into the S's, the Shell S that is, and she is up once again. So we are on pace at the moment with 2 corners to go to break into that 132 margin. Can Raven Plummer keep it together through the final corner? Gets back on the pole, heading towards the line. What will it be? Does she manage to get to the top spot? No, lost a heap of time through the final few corners there, undoing all of her hard work through the first 2 sectors. It is an improvement, but not enough to trouble the top spot of Estefano Barrera or even second place Mikhail Charles. That looks to have been a disappointment for Raven there. That final sector really not coming together for her. Kurt Moss at the moment is trying to do something about the Colombian at the top of the timing sheets. He has dominated throughout the course of this season. Estefano Barrera, if he is not on the top step, he is very well near the top step. Can anybody upset that status quo? Kurt Moss is certainly going to try. We have not seen much of Moss this season so far. But here comes Kurt Moss across the line, improves to third, but still not enough to trouble Estefano Barrera there up ahead. Raven Plummer is going again and does manage another blistering first sector. So can she keep it together through the next two sectors to unseat Estefano Barrera at the top of the timing charts? 2 through sectors, it looks good so far. Can she keep it together for just one more sector? Raven Plummer now with one corner to go, just on the exit there of the second to last corner. Going through the final corner, does she manage to get the power down with more efficiency this time around? As she approaches the line, let's see what it is, and she goes to the top of the timing sheets, and we have broken into the 132s, ladies and gentlemen. On a 132.9, Raven Plummer puts herself at the top of the timing sheets. Is anybody gonna be able to match that? We are about on pace with the fastest time we have seen so far. Is there any more time out there for these drivers to locate? We have lost Estefano Barrera temporarily. I'm not sure what happened there. Let's hope he is able to rejoin before we get going for the race. 3 minutes left in this qualifying session, and once again it has not disappointed. These drivers are trading blows back and forth. They go trying to put themselves at the top of the timing sheet for the first race. And as the improvements continue, it is worth noting that the top 4 drivers are still staying within that 4/10 mark of each other. Raven Plummer would be the driver that is most clear of the rest of the field. She would have about 0.3 of a second over Barrera when Barrera does rejoin, but then Estefano not having much time between himself and the 2 drivers behind, Michael Charles and Kurt Moss. But that is still working under the assumption that Barrera can manage to rejoin the server before the next session and retain his position. Okay, so he has managed to rejoin and slots back into his P2 spot there with his time of 1:33.2 at the moment. Still only good enough for P2, as Raven Plummer managed to string together that lap that was a blistering lap right now, and she is going slightly quicker yet again as she is now heading through the triples. Can she find more improvement? Still, Kurt Moss also finding some time out there, so Moss is about to go through. Oh, and he has abandoned that lap, maybe not thinking that that lap was on, and has gone back to the pits to try and regroup. So we will go back to Raven Plummer, who through sector 1 has found very small improvement, 0.3 of a second. Is there any more improvement out there for her? None through sector 2. She has actually lost almost 0.1 of a second there in that particular sector. So with 2 corners to go, can she put together an even faster final sector than she did before? Through the final corner now, gets the power down. What will it be for Raven Plummer here? Goes to the line and lost some time there in the second sector. It seems that we may have pole position for Raven Plummer, because even she can't find any more improvement out there. Sits at the top of the timing sheets at the moment, but there are a few drivers that should be on valid laps. 10 seconds to go, so it's do or die time, ladies and gentlemen. All drivers are now on their final flying laps. Barrera and Moss in the pits cannot improve. Michael Charles through 2 sectors, not looking great, so I don't think he will be troubling the drivers up ahead. Raven Plummer through sector 1, not too far off the pace, but gets it wrong there on the exit of the hairpin following the triples, and that is gonna be lap undone. But I don't think it will matter, because the top 5 have not been able to trouble Raven Plummer here in this qualifying session. So it looks like, despite that Era Raven Plummer will take pole. Daniel Velez has abandoned his lap, and Joshua Brady and Kimani Eastman not separated by very much, but Joshua Brady looking to be finding some time here on this particular lap. Still quite some ways adrift of the front of the pack, but what will this improvement be? Does he crack into the 34s? No, not quite. Still about 1.3 seconds away from 6th place. So it looks like there are two separate battles that are going to be going on. Joshua Brady and Kimani Eastman will be locked in a battle down there in 7th and 8th, and the dark horse of this particular race will be Mark Anthony Eaton, who has not been able to get out on track and qualify. So we know he has pace, but as he is starting from the back of the field, can he make his way through cleanly and take the fight to the drivers ahead? These questions will be answered when we move into the race session in a few moments time. But Raven Plummer putting together a lap that saw her 3/10 clear of the competition, and it is no small feat to qualify the behemoth that is Estefano Barrera in P2. Mikhail Charles putting together a nice lap there in P3 at 1:33.3, just about, it's actually less than a tenth away from Estefano Barrera. Kurt Moss just over a tenth away in P4, and is almost neck and neck, 400ths of a second between himself and Mikhail Charles. So 3rd and 4th could be trouble for Estefano Barrera. Both of those drivers just about within a tenth, and that battle for the 2nd spot on the grid is very much on, and even the battle for 1st, because even though Raven was able to put that lap together, who's to say that on race pace she will be able to maintain that advantage? Still all to play for, ladies and gentlemen. This is why we go racing. So when we come back, it will be time for lights out and to get some action out on track with these drivers that look rapid around Oschersleben here this evening. So we will take a few moments and be back with you in about 2 minutes.
You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. The grid has been set. The drivers are lined up, and you can see the clock there showing us that we have just about 15 seconds to go before the start of this one. The lights are up, but again, when the lights go out, the race does not start immediately. These drivers will be heading out on a formation lap led by the safety car there at the back of the grid. It will take the lead of these drivers as you see it peeling off there before the drivers get going, taking the lead of the field, and they will follow suit for the outlap, the formation lap of the grid here, and our newly appointed safety car based on a Porsche 911 there taking the lead, and Raven Plummer will follow suit. Brilliantly designed, that safety car by our design team here at the JSRA, showcasing our sponsor's logo on the front of that car, the ceramic hair logo on the front and on the back, as we see the safety car heading out on the formation lap there with the cars following behind. So the grid now set. Raven Plummer showing that she has pace to lead the field. Can she keep it together through the opening laps and maintain her advantage? These are the questions that we will be answering in the next 25 minutes of racing action that will be coming your way. When the safety car gets back to sector 3, it will peel off and Raven Plummer will be controlling the speed of the field with that safety car emblem that you see on screen still being displayed. That's what that SC is for. That's where the safety car should now be pulling away from the pack, heading back to the pits, and the driver at the front of the field will be holding the pace of the rest of the field. We will then have the speed limit warning light come up on screen to show that the drivers are to maintain a speed of 80 kilometers an hour through the final sector. Once we get back onto the start finish straight, we will then get a red light to warn the drivers that we're about to get up to racing conditions, followed by the green light for the drivers to go racing. You will notice there that Mikhail Charles at the moment has moved up into P2. I believe there is a time penalty for Estefano Barrera, who has to drop back to P5 following his brilliant qualifying showing. So he has a bit of work to do here at the start of the race, but we are now through the final corner. Raven Plummer leading the field, and there is the red warning light to tell the drivers that we're about to head into racing conditions, and Raven Plummer has bolted. Estefano Barrera gets a drive through for jumping the start almost immediately, finding himself out of position, maybe trying to make up a place. But Mikhail Charles there on the inside as we get to turn 1, trying to take advantage. Raven Plummer, however, sweeps through, having the better line into that corner, and manages to stay ahead. Mikhail Charles under fire from Kurt Moss right away, and does Moss get that position away from him? It seems that he does, but Mikhail should have the inside line there and not able to take advantage. And is that Pommels trying to sweep around the outside of Mikhail Charles? The two make a bit of contact, but Charles managing to stay ahead, and the opening few moments here has not been devoid of action. Estefano Barrera down there with Joshua Brady trying to fight his way through. Mark Anthony Eaton not able to make up many positions at the start, has some work to do right there in a gaggle with his team at the moment. That is Joshua Brady leading at the trio of JSRA Team B drivers. And is that Joshua Brady maybe peeling off there, letting Mark Anthony Eaton through, knowing that Eaton is the quicker of the three drivers there battling it out? And this is as much a team game as it is a personal game, ladies and gentlemen. Mark Anthony Eaton now will give chase, but Estefano Barrera has a penalty to take. And is he deliberately holding up the likes of Mark Anthony Eaton, trying to give Luis Daniel Velez there an advantage, as Mikhail Charles seems to have had an incident and finds himself going slowly. That's Eaton getting by Mikhail Charles. Now Daniel Velez up there in P3, Pommel's getting ahead. Not sure what happened there for Mikhail Charles as we are watching the events unfold further back, but Charles now has some work to do here for the next 23 minutes of this race. Eaton trying to take the fight to Pommel's ahead. Pommel's just about 0.7 of a second ahead of Mark Anthony Eaton, who should have the pace advantage. We see the notification that Barrera has in fact served his penalty and will rejoin, so we will check in on his progress later on. Eastman and Brady almost trading blows at the back of the pack, position 7 and 8. They will be the first drivers to come under fire from Estefano Barrera if he is able to close up to those drivers very quickly. At the moment, Eaton doing a good job trying to stay close to Stephen Pommels, maybe waiting in the wings to see if Pommels will make an error, but Mark might have to take the more aggressive approach and try and get that move done with some urgency before Luis Daniel Velez is out of reach. Up at the front, Kurt Moss closing in on Raven Plummer, trying to take the fight to her. She did get away cleanly as we expected and has maintained the lead of this race, but at the moment she is not too comfortably out ahead as Moss 0.3 quicker on that lap, and it is the fastest lap of the race so far, is trying to put the pressure on her to either get the hurry up on to clear the rest of the field. They are already 0.4 clear, these two drivers, of third place, but that's not to say that they don't. Kurt definitely wants a victory here, and he will be pressing his advantage to Raven Plummer to try and close that gap down. Eaton still right there in the slipstream of Stephen Pommels, not yet in position to make a move, but is trying to stay as close as possible. And Daniel Velez up ahead seems to be struggling as well, not pulling away from Pommels, so something needs to give between these two drivers in order to take the fight to Daniel Velez up ahead. Not sure what's happening. Barrera at the back of the field meanwhile is doing some, and Pommels here is trying to make a move on Luis Daniel Velez. Does he get the move done? It seems he got it done through the chicane. Very unorthodox place to try and get that move done. Manages to do so. Eaton right there in the slipstream will be the next driver to attack. Looking left, looking right, stepping out of the slipstream just to see if he can make that move happen. Deciding to back out of it at the last moment there, making sure that he studies the movements of Luis Daniel Velez before trying to make that move, trying not to get his current gains undone with an incident, you know, having started at the back of the pack and worked his way up to P5 here. Just making sure that when he does make that move, it is done in an intelligent manner. Having a look there as we head into the hotel curve. Not quite close enough. Where will he try and get it done? He may also have to be watching his rear view mirrors, as Mikhail Charles is not that far adrift, and we know Charles has found some pace here in this particular race. So this is going to become a train of 4 cars at the moment, fighting it out for the final podium paying position, because they are falling away from the leader and Kurt Moss, who are still within a second of each other. This race is not disappointing, ladies and gentlemen. Pommel's leading, Eaton there fighting some counter steer, trying to keep the car pointed in the right direction, and that cost him a bit in that corner as they head through the chicane. He has fallen away from Daniel Velez ever so slightly and almost back into the clutches of Mikhail Charles, and we know these two have had their issues in the past. Who is going to come out on top from those two having an interaction? At the moment, Eaton still holding station, and I think he'd be wanting to put a car between himself and Mikhail Charles to make sure that when Mikhail Charles does start to attack, he is a little bit further up the order. But at the moment, Mikhail Charles closing right down on Mark Anthony Eaton. The gap just about 0.3 of a second. Mikhail Charles, the ever aggressor, might be looking to make that move earlier rather than later, as Daniel Velez putting some pressure on Pommel to try and retake that P3. These four drivers not separated by anything at the moment, ladies and gentlemen. Who is going to be the first driver to blink? It's looking like Daniel Velez may have a run here, but isn't quite close enough to make something happen. Pommel's right now the bottleneck of this group, holding the pack at bay as he manages to hold on to that P3, giving me some Fernando Alonso vibes from the sprint race at China in the Formula One Championship yesterday. However, at the moment, Stephen Pommel's doing his best impression of Fernando Alonso, holding up the drivers behind who are showing that maybe they do have a bit more pace than Pommel's, but he is positioning that car ever so nicely to keep those drivers at bay. Eaton not able to do anything about Daniel Velez, and Michael Charles right there in the slipstream as well. Joshua Brady a further 5 seconds back with Kimani Eastman in tow. Those two drivers are losing time hand over fist to the likes of Estefano Barrero, and with 17 minutes to go, are they losing enough time per lap that Estefano will catch them before we get to the checkered flag? We will have to see how that all unfolds. At the moment, it is still these four drivers. They are not separated by much, and who is going to be the first driver to blink? Michael Charles there having a small look at Mark Anthony Eaton, and nobody yet willing to pull the trigger. Is this a game of attrition, or are these drivers just waiting to see who is going to be the one to make the first mistake and open the door for something to happen? These four drivers right now are giving us a show. They are nose to tail almost the whole way through, and there is some contact. Luis Daniel Velez, the first driver to make the mistake, makes contact with the cone on the outside, and that cone is there was something noted in the driver briefing that any contact out there will cause the driver to make solid contact with a cone, as opposed to just brushing away the cone the way it's supposed to happen. So that is Luis Daniel Velez's race being undone a little bit, and he has some work to do to get back into this fight for the final podium position. That now gives Mark Anthony Eaton a bit of free air to try and close up to the back of Pommel to see if he will have better luck at making the overtake on Stephen Pommel's than Daniel Velez was able to do. We will stay abreast with this action to see what we get from it. Will Daniel Velez now be able to take the fight to Eastman just up the road? Eastman closing in on Joshua Brady, so there is still action taking place up and down the order, those two drivers trading times. But Eaton still stuck in the slipstream of Stephen Pommel's, trying to find a way to make it by, and Pommel's just doing exactly what he needs to do, keeping just far enough out of reach that the dive cannot be attempted, and in doing so has managed to maintain that P3 position, all the while falling away from the leaders at an alarming rate. And Eaton is the next driver to get it wrong, make some contact with the sausage curb on the inside, and that sees his race now undone, as well as he loses position to Brady and Eastman as well as Velez. These drivers just making small errors that are catastrophic to their race. Now comes Michael Charles, and is that Pommel's letting him by? Pommel's, who has been the aggressor thus far, battling with everybody in tow, has decided that now is the time to play the team game with Michael Charles when they're no longer on the same team, giving Michael Charles that P3 position, maybe realizing that this is his best chance of holding on to that P4, you know, following Michael through so that he does not lose too much time, with the drivers behind now having some work to do to get back into this fight. This is a very unusual sequence of events in this particular race, but Michael Charles back onto the podium paying positions and runs wide, and there goes Stephen Pommel's through. Pommel's has been the most consistent of the drivers fighting for that third spot on the grid. All of the other drivers have made slight mistakes that have cost them in a big way in that fight for P3. So now Michael Charles has it all to do again to close up to the back of Pommels, and I'm not sure if Pommels will be so kind the next time around in allowing him through. So we will check in on that fight. Daniel Velez, Eaton has closed back up to Luis Daniel Velez, having lost out, making that error there as they finished the triple. Can he now get ahead of Daniel Velez, who has caught up to the back of Kimani Eastman and Joshua Brady just up ahead? Who is gonna come out of this fight on top? These four drivers are now gonna be locked in a battle here. Mr. Penley in the chat pointing out the commentator's curse at work. I don't think I did anything there. These drivers just not quite locked in at the moment and getting it a bit wrong. I think I'm not going to take the blame for that one because I am merely doing my job, sir. We are still on board here with the gaggle of cars from Brady down to Eaton, and it is a four-way fight that it was for P3 is now for P5, as I think Pommels and Charles have kind of checked out 7 seconds up the road ahead of this pack. That's going to be quite the margin to close down over the next 12 minutes of racing action. We will see if they are able to do so, but Daniel Velez now putting the pressure on Eastman, and it is Daniel Velez going for a move, Eastman covering that move off. Daniel Velez, however, going to try and sweep around the outside. Can he get it done? They come out side by side. Daniel Velez is ahead and does manage to stay ahead as they head into the S's. Eastman has to give that one up. And is he gonna be as kind to his teammate the second time, allowing him through, getting it a little bit wrong there? And is he gonna allow Eaton through? Yeah, opens the door there for Eaton to go ahead after that incident. And Joshua Brady also deciding that he is gonna back out of that fight, putting Daniel Velez back into P5 and giving Eaton a clear run at Daniel Velez there. Joshua Brady back in the pits. It seems something went wrong there for Joshua Brady. That was not a situation of him just letting his teammates through, as Michael Charles has managed to get that move done on Pommels. I am not sure if Pommels was just ever so kind to the Trinidadian driver and just allowed him through there before they got back onto the start-finish straight. But Michael Charles finding himself back in P3. Can he keep it together this time around? We see Moss and Plummer in the background there. They're still not separated by much. However, Raven Plummer managing to maintain a gap to Kurt Moss up ahead. Pommels sticking with Michael Charles, and maybe that was the plan, using Michael Charles to try and, you know, maintain that pace over the rest of the field. Daniel Velez is 8 seconds down the road, and it's going to take quite some doing to close up that gap, barring a mistake from any of these two drivers up ahead. So at the moment, Pommel is doing the right thing, I think, knowing that he does not quite have the pace of Michael Charles, trying to use Michael Charles as the benchmark to, you know, keep his pace up over the field behind Brady. The first retirement of the race. Not quite sure what took place there for Joshua Brady, whether it was a mechanical issue or poor strategy planning. Joshua Brady, I'm getting from the stewards, did not fuel the car up properly for this race, and as as we are about more than halfway through the race, it seems Joshua Brady managed to run out of fuel. Eaton, meanwhile, has gotten by Velez behind, but Velez managing to get that position back. These two are battling it out for P5 at the moment, and it seems Kimani Eastman is right there in the fight as well, staying ahead of Daniel Velez, managing to stay ahead of the pack though, but the pack is all right there waiting for their opportunity to strike. and it's gonna be who blinks first. Will it be Eaton, Eastman, or Daniel Velez taking that spot? I don't think Eastman really would realistically have the pace to keep up with these two. He was about a second adrift in the practice sessions and in qualifying, so maybe not quite having the pace. As we see Eaton there sliding through the hairpin in the background, coming out of the triples as they're heading to the chicane now. Still under a second the gap, but not quite close enough to make anything happen. Daniel Velez doing just enough to stave off any attack from Mark Anthony Eaton, and we have had a race on our hands, ladies and gentlemen. It has been a race of multiple parts. Moss and Plummer out in front. Moss there losing some time to Raven Plummer. It seems he has made a small mistake in that final sector before the start of the new lap, and that dropped him a couple of seconds away from Raven Plummer. However, the fight is not quite over yet. We still have 7.5 minutes of action coming your way. Eaton putting the pressure on Daniel Velez. Where is he gonna try and strike? I do believe he should have the pace to make something happen, but at the moment has just been stuck in that slipstream behind Luis Daniel Velez, and I'm sure frustrations may be boiling over in the car. Eaton thinking that he has a bit more pace, however not getting close enough to make a move. And all the while, Estefano Barrera, whom we have not really spoken about since his drive-through penalty, is about 6 seconds away with 6 minutes to go. Needs to be closing at about 1.5 seconds per lap if he wants to catch up to the likes of Eastman before the checkered flag falls. So we will check in on his progress by the time we get to the final few laps. But we are still watching the battle here between Eaton and Velez. Eaton just not getting close enough. He is sticking with him, but as we always say, it is one thing to catch, another thing to pass, and we are seeing a prime example of that at the moment. Eaton is right there but cannot get close enough to make a move or attempt to make a move, and is just stuck in the slipstream of Luis Daniel Velez with nothing doing at the moment. Up and down the order, we seem to have settled into a lull for the top three. Raven Plummer 3 seconds clear of Kurt Moss, Mikhail Charles, a further 13 seconds, 12.5 seconds adrift. Pommels in P4 has fallen away from Joshua Brady a little bit. He was sticking with him for a while, but has fallen away a bit. But we have been on board with the battle for P5 for quite some time. Eaton is as close as he has ever been, but still not close enough to make anything happen. He is right there and just needs to find that spot that he can move Daniel Velez out of position, but constantly sliding through that hairpin coming out of the triples, not quite getting the power down effectively through that corner, and it keeps costing him an advantage to get a clean run as we get onto the back straight here. He is not that far away, but still not quite close enough to make something happen. Eaton is gonna have to figure out how to move Daniel Velez offline, maybe break a little bit later, get a nose up the inside somewhere and move him off of line for one of these corners so that he can try and take the fight. And is this the corner? He gets the better exit, it seems, and Daniel Velez immediately moving to a defensive position, but I don't think he will be close enough. The gap still looking a little wide there before we get to turn one, and still nothing doing for Mark Anthony Eaton. That looked like it may have been half a chance, but not quite close enough at this stage of the game. We have been watching a myriad of battles for the majority of this race. We have about 3.5 minutes left in this particular race. Raven Plummer from the start had just driven away. Not quite. Oh, is this the chance for Mark Anthony Eaton finally make something happen there, trying to get Velez out of position as they head through the chicane? Eaton stuck a nose up the inside, but maybe not quite getting Daniel Velez far enough out of position for something to happen there. That was a half a chance for Mark Anthony Eaton. Tried to take advantage of it, and you can see that Eaton has the pace advantage, but is just not able to make something happen. Clearly the slipstream not that strong around the circuit, or Daniel Velez is just getting some blistering exits out of the chicane back onto the back straight and onto the start finish straight, and is managing to keep Eaton at bay. Eaton is almost touching the back of that car. He could probably reach out with a hand and grab the rear wing, but just not close enough to make anything happen. Daniel Velez runs a little bit deep there, and that opens the door once again. Eaton on the inside. Does he have the speed coming out of that exit? No, he does not. Velez covering it off. And this is what I mean. Velez now has been moved out of position for a couple of corners, but nothing has come of it. Once again, Eaton there not quite making things happen. And we have our second DNF of the event. That is Kimani Eastman, and I think, is he another driver that has succumbed to underfueling the car at this stage of the game? Eastman and Brady not quite looking prepared here this evening in the first race of the evening. Both drivers with a DNF. Not quite sure what took place there for Eastman, but I'm sure we'll get an update in a few moments. However, that puts Estefano Barrera up to 7th, and we can see him there in the background. Has this been Daniel Velez's strategy this whole time? Estefano Barrera, 7.5 seconds adrift. Probably will not be closing up to this duo before we get to the end of the race, but we are in the desperation zone at the moment, ladies and gentlemen. We have maybe 3 laps left, as that will be determined by when the leaders cross the line. So we will keep an eye on Raven Plummer when she gets back around to the start finish straight to see if we have 1 lap or 2 left in this particular race. So Eaton needs to get something done, and needs to get it done soon, or he will not be finding himself moving up the order, as he still is stuck in that slipstream behind Luis Daniel Velez. And at this point, Eaton must be an expert on the rear wing of that Colombian Audi, the Colombian livery on the Audi. But Eaton now actually falling away a little bit from Daniel Velez, maybe following that closely for as long as he did has caused some amount of excess wear on those tires. These are front wheel drive cars, so the front tires do take a beating, and at the moment Eaton now dropping back from Daniel Velez a little bit, and is not gonna be able to complete that move, I don't think, with just about 2 laps to go. The leader did cross the line before we got to time elapsed, so we have 2 laps of racing here to go, and at the moment Raven Plummer out in front, looking quite comfortable. Moss in the early stages of this race did look like he could take the fight to Raven, but at the end of the day, Raven just having overwhelming pace to the competition and has managed to stay just about 4 seconds clear of her next nearest rival. Mikhail Charles, after having fallen down the order with a mistake made, manages to climb back up to P3. That will be a solid result for him in this particular event. Daniel Pommel in P4, the lone wolf at the moment, having a casual drive by himself unlike most of the drivers around him. Although he himself has been involved in a fair few battles. And now we have crossed onto the final lap. Well, the leaders have. These two drivers still a little ways adrift. Eaton has gotten back under the 1 second mark, but I don't think he's going to be close enough to get anything done, barring a mistake from Daniel Velez up ahead before we get to the checkered flag. So we have one lap of action still to come your way in this first race of the evening. But once again, ladies and gentlemen, be sure not to go anywhere, because these drivers have it all to do again with the reverse grid that's coming your way in a few moments time. A bit of a lock up there from Daniel Velez, but I don't think it's a big enough mistake to give Eaton any advantage, and Eaton himself, they're making a mistake running a little bit wide onto the grass. Daniel Velez just doing exactly enough to keep Mark Anthony Eaton at bay here this evening, and that is an unfortunate turn of events, as we thought Eaton may have had the pace to trouble the top of the pack. But here we are on board with Miss Raven Plummer. Drove a near perfect race from start to finish, led this race the whole way through, and comes across the line to take victory in the first race of the evening. There is Raven Plummer taking that victory. Kurt Moss comes across in P2, and here is Mikhail Charles coming around the final corner. I did tell him P3 was on the cards. He didn't believe me, so here is the proof, ladies and gentlemen. Mikhail Charles comes across the line in P3. Pommels will take P4, and Luis Daniel Velez, putting on a clinic of defense, holds on for P5. Eaton will be very frustrated with that P6, and the last of the finishers, Estefano Barrera, coming across the line in P7. I would say damage limitation, but that was really down to the likes of Eastman and Brady not planning properly for the duration of this race. But looking now at the winner here, Raven Plummer, you know, doing a fantastic job in the first race of the evening, leading from start to finish, staving off an early attack from Kurt Moss and just keeping it together to take that victory here this evening. A brilliant showing from her. And Moss, whom we have not seen much of in this series, makes his re-debut, dare I say, and finds himself on the podium in a brilliant P2, just not quite enough in the tank to take the fight to Raven up ahead. But good to see Kurt Moss back, and also back on the podium. So that's the first race in the book, ladies and gentlemen, and we have one more race to come your way that will be starting in a few moments time. Once again, that will be a reverse grid of these drivers. I'm not sure if Eastman and Brady will be classified for that reverse grid. They may be starting in 8th and 9th respectively, which would put Estefano Barrera and Eaton on the front row for the second race. I could be wrong, so do not quote me on that. I'm not sure how the stewards will treat their being 3 laps down, so we will see if that comes to those drivers being able to start at the head of the pack. But here we're seeing the top 3 in Parc Ferme. Mikhail Charles, Raven Plummer, and Kurt Moss, or top 3 finishers from the first race, looking good in their matching odds. All 3 drivers are part of JSRA Team A, so a 1-2-3 for JSRA Team A in this particular event. A good showing from that team, and giving us the vibe that we've gotten from Noble Racing in the past, when those drivers maul the competition around them. Looking quite good at the moment for that team. So as we await the start of the second race of the evening, we will take a brief moment and be back with you for the reverse grid.
Work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order.
And we are back for race 2, ladies and gentlemen, with Estefan Barrera and Mark Anthony Eaton starting on the front row for this one. They're Joshua Brady and Kimani Eastman, not classified in the finishing order, having not done the last few laps, so they will start at the back of the pack. Again, safety car will lead us away here for the formation lap after the lights go out, which they have already gone out, so we will have a lap with which to get our thoughts together, reflect on what we saw in the first race, and gear ourselves up for what is to come in the second race. Barrera and Eaton do have the pace to stay ahead of the field. Barrera will have a rear gunner in his teammate Luis Daniel Velez, who starts from P3. We will see if he can do anything to keep the charging pack at bay. The likes of Moss Plummer and Charles just behind Stephen Pommels there will be looking to try and get into the mix at the front of the field as quickly as possible, so we will see what progress they can make. This grid, being a smaller grid, is actually maybe both a blessing and a curse for the quicker drivers in the back of the pack there. A blessing in that we don't typically get the kind of incidents that we would see on a larger grid when you have some of the slower drivers leading the pack. But at the same time, for the drivers that start down there in PE 7, 8, and 9, you won't be making the same kind of progress that you would make in some of those other races. So they're certainly going to have some work to do around Oschersleben here. in order to get themselves back up into the mix. The safety car has peeled off, so these drivers are now controlling the pace. The two drivers at the front, Barrera and Eaton. And when we get back to the line, we will go racing. We are going to get the speed limit popping up in a few moments to show the drivers that they are to maintain 81 kilometers per hour back to the start finish straight, and that is how Estefano Barrera got the penalty in the first race. Jumped the start by going before the green light, meaning he broke that speed, that 80 kilometer per hour speed limit that you now see on screen. So with one corner to go, can these drivers keep it together? I know some of them at the back may be anticipating trying to make early moves, but we will see how this all unfolds. And Barrera is set up to have an advantage here. The lights go out and he gets away. Daniel Velez may be looking to try and move Mark Anthony Eaton out of position. Roles reverse now for Eaton and Velez. Eaton, the driver, ahead, and manages to stay ahead there. The likes of Mikhail Charles I saw trying to make moves on Stephen Pommels there early on. Pommels managing to stay ahead. Plummer and Moss holding station. Is that Joshua Brady getting brave there, trying to take the fight to the likes of Kurt Moss? Raven Plummer managing to get ahead of Moss in the early goings here, and she is gonna have to do some work to try and take the fight to the competition up ahead. Barrera holding on over Eaton. Eaton not giving him quarter though. Eaton is right there in the fight at the moment, and Pommels is putting some pressure on the likes of Luis Daniel Velez for that final podium position. But behind is what we need to pay attention to. Mikhail Charles, Raven Plummer, Kurt Moss, all in a line trying to make their progress up the order. Raven Plummer closer to Charles is though than Charles is to Pommels up ahead, so Mikhail Charles may have to be checking his rearview mirrors here in the early going, but Raven Plummer might also need to be checking hers because Kurt Moss is also right there in the mix. He backs off a little bit there. Not sure if that was just a small mistake from Moss or Moss thinking that he does not want to be involved in the fight that is Raven Plummer and Mikhail Charles. Is that Mikhail Charles giving Plummer that position, allowing his teammate for her to press the advantage to the drivers up ahead and maybe just trying to follow her through? He has fallen away quite drastically from her. Not sure if he made a mistake or if his plan is to also let Kurt Moss through to give their team the best chance. He pulls off of the racing line there, seeming to let Kurt Moss by as well. So Mikhail Charles playing the team game very effectively here in the second race of the evening. Pommels is almost pushing Daniel Velez down that short straight before the triples, and Daniel Velez once again being the bottleneck to the drivers behind. Will they have more success than Eaton had in the first race at trying to make something happen? Pommels right on the rear wing of Luis Daniel Velez, but Raven Plummer is also close by, looking to get involved in the action up ahead, and she is right there with them now. 0.4 of a second the gap. Is Pommels going to try and go on the offensive before Raven can get there? I think that might be his best strategy at the moment. Use offense as defense, and Pommels is putting some pressure on Daniel Velez to try and get into that final podium paying position, to put another car between himself and the charging Raven Plummer just behind. Raven under pressure from Kurt Moss, but I'm not sure they will be fighting as a team at the moment. Maybe Moss just sticking close to try and make sure that he is in position to strike when anything happens up ahead. Pommels there slow through the apex of Hotel, and maybe that was Daniel Velez slowing them up. They are already almost 2 seconds adrift of our leaders, Eden and Barrera. And it seems Daniel Velez is either playing rear gunner, as I suspected he might, holding up the rest of the pack so that those drivers do not get involved in the action up ahead, or Daniel Velez is just that much slower. But it is so difficult to pass around this track that nobody has yet been able to make the move happen. You are seeing them right there in the line, and Pommels has fallen away a bit from Velez, my apologies. I say fallen away, it's 0.5 of a second, but you can see that what 0.5 of a second looks like around the racetrack. That gap could fit about 2 or 3 cars in it, so he has dropped off a little bit and is not quite close enough to make anything happen, so is definitely gonna have to be checking his rearview mirrors, as Raven Plummer is right there waiting for her moment to strike. And at the moment, Pommel's doing just enough once again to hold on to that P4 position ahead of Raven Plummer. So clearly, even with the pace advantage that these drivers enjoy, either that Hyundai is very, very quick in a straight line and managing to hold on. Oh, but Pommels makes a mistake there, and immediately both Moss and Plummer go through. Pommel's coming back on track, finding himself down 2 positions now to P6 with Mikhail Charles just behind. But I think Mikhail Charles there also made a mistake in that moment, which sees his opportunity to get by Pommels as well not coming to fruition. However, Raven Plummer sets her sights now on the first of 3 podium paying positions up there, P3 Luis Daniel Velez. But at the moment, Mark Anthony Eaton seems to be applying the pressure to Estefano Barrero, trying to get that top step of the podium. Eaton right in the slipstream, not much separating these 2 drivers, and it looks like Mark Anthony Eaton here has come alive after the first 6 minutes of this race. Can he get anything done? It seems to be a track that isn't so easy to make an overtaking maneuver at. Not sure why these drivers struggle to close up. Maybe the slipstream just not that powerful around a circuit such as this. Not much elevation change, but I do believe we are quite some distance above sea level, so maybe the slipstream not quite having the effects that it would at some of the other circuits. Raven Plummer has also closed up to the back of Daniel Velez, but cannot quite make a move at the moment and has to overslow in the first corner, because it seems like most of the pace is found through the turns and not on the straights. The exits are fine, but in the middle of the corner, these drivers have massive advantages and cannot utilize them here this evening. Maybe Raven Plummer at some point will be thinking, do I let Kurt Most have a go at Daniel Velez in my stead? Because at the moment she is not making anything happen, and the longer they stay active in this fight, the more advantage it gives to the drivers up ahead, although they at the moment are locked in their own fight, and that is backing them up into the pack just behind. So 2 fights going on, and it's which one of these fights is gonna have the results that we are anticipating, where it all starts to pop off at any given moment. Barrera seems to have a distinct advantage there on the exit of the S, where he gains a couple of tenths on Eaton religiously every time they exit Shell S, and that seems to be what is keeping him I say comfortably, but ahead of Mark Anthony Eaton at the moment. Behind Raven, Kurt, and Luis Daniel Velez, all stuck in a very, very tight train, and it seems Daniel Velez once again playing bottleneck, and that is Kurt Moss maybe trying to take that position off of Raven Plummer. Raven allowing Moss to take that position, thinking it's better to have your teammate try and do the dirty work for you, as she is not having any luck at the moment. And clearly Moss also with the pace to try and take that fight to Daniel Velez. Maybe he can do a better job of moving Luis Daniel Velez out of position in order to get that move done, and maybe she can then follow him through. We saw that with Pommels, where she just applied the pressure to Pommels, and Pommels had to, made a mistake which opened the door for both herself and Kurt Moss. So these two drivers playing the team game very nicely here. And is that Eaton having a look on Estefano Barrero? He is, but he just loses a little bit through that section. Every time they get to the exit of the Shell S, you see that gap extend ever so slightly, and that keeps Estefano it just gives him that smidge of breathing room that he needs through the first couple of corners to keep his advantage at the moment. Moss still not able to make inroads into Daniel Velez, is having the same struggle that Raven Plummer did, but Raven seems to be struggling a bit herself at the moment, falling back to Stephen Pommels instead of staying close to the front duo at the moment for that third position. And we're going to be momentarily joined by El Presidente. Whilst I was trying to do that, it seems Moss finally got the move done on Daniel Velez.
Mr. Dillon, he flung that one on the outside and made that move stick. I'm so sorry, but I was so distracted if you were talking to me previously.
As I was trying to get you over into the commentary box, I looked up and Kurt Moss was in P3, so it seems Moss getting that move done. Maybe the problem is me. Maybe I am the problem. The more I talk about it, the more it does not happen. But Kurt Moss now comfortably in P3 ahead of Daniel Velez and Raven Plummer. Raven now needs to try and make that move as well. She's been struggling. It seems, El Presidente, that the slipstream not that powerful around here, so when they exit onto the straights, the drivers up ahead are just able to hold on that much more.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you're noticing Daniel has been maintaining a 1.5 second gap today. The top two that were ahead, but now falling back to Kurt Massive. But well, we know how Raven is, a very patient and strategic driver. And one thing I know about her, we can trust that she will definitely plan her attack a little bit, safe as she does move. Speak of the devil.
Yes, sir. Daniel Velez getting it a little bit wrong in the second to last corner there, and that just opened the door for Raven Plummer to get that move done. And Pommel's also following her through as he was close enough to make it stick, and now he is defending from Daniel Velez as Velez tries to fight back. He is managing to hold on. The one that I am concerned about is Mikhail Charles. Mikhail showed great pace in the first race, but at the moment not looking so hot. Not sure what happened there for him in the second race of the evening.
Boy, I don't know what's happening. But this is just very reminiscent of Donington Park at the Radicals when it was just loads and loads of the yellow and purple Noble Racing livery surrounding the JSRA drivers. Now it's a full-on Uno reverse card, and now at this point I'm praying for the best for them. The Mikhail Charles, we know he has pace. We know he was talking about, not being too comfortable, but then he showed out in race one. So I'm excited to see what he can do on the rear bumper of Mr. Daniel Velez from Noble Racing. But No, this is epic to say the least. The numbers are not the best, but the, the racing is of the highest quality, so we have to give all regards to the drivers. Um, Again, sorry to talk so much, Mr. Dillon, as first in the racing as it is.
No, this is your show after all. You know, I am merely an employee here. However, I was tuning into the battle for the lead. Mark Anthony Eaton has been sat right in the slipstream of Estefano Barrero this entire race, and it seems Eaton either has pace to match Barrera or maybe has a little bit more pace, but Estefano, of course, defending quite nicely. And it doesn't seem as though the drivers have to do a lot to defend around here, because the slipstream, as I mentioned, does not seem to be that advantageous. So when they come out onto the straights, either these drivers are getting the perfect exit every time around, or the slipstream just not yielding the results to give these drivers a chance to attack.
So what I'm noticing is, especially in the chicane, that's where Mark gains most of his time. But at the same time, it's as if the track is just so tight and small that Stefano just knows exactly where to park the car. So it's just so difficult for Mark to get through. But as I do speak, he does take a look on the inside. But again, Estefano just parking the car in the right places, right, and ready for Mark on any attack that he has, and then leading on to the start finish, he just gets that run to defend. It's I think I'm not sure if it's the orientation of the track or if he's just a little bit red mixed from the results of the first race with the original drive-through penalty. So not sure, but it's immaculate driving from both drivers. I'm loving the patience. Commitment to it is just it's I can't get my eyes off of the racing, and then it's all over as well, because even right behind we do Team A a little bit under 2 seconds behind Mark Anthony. So if Mark does get in front of Estefano now, does he slow down Estefano for the rest of Team A to catch up, or does he just run away in the distance if he can? But the defending here is immaculate. The attacking here is immaculate. As you can see, Mark is getting the runs. Estefano is just parking the car exactly where he needs to park it.
Absolutely, and I am watching that battle unfold as we speak, and it seems you are correct. Estefano is parking that car ever so nicely, because you pointed out something very, very, very true. Mark gets the better run out of the chicane, but Estefano just defends it ever so nicely each and every time. And then when we get into the Shell S, it seems Estefano is able to point and squeeze that car a little bit better than Mark can coming out of that corner. So he does get an advantage there, and then can maintain that advantage on the start finish straight. And that has been the story of this race the entirety of its duration. But what I'm looking at is we have just about 8 minutes left in this race. Moss and Plummer behind are about 4/10 quicker over the duration of each of these laps. Can they catch up and get involved in that fight before we get to the checkered flag? I'm thinking it is possible, but as I say that, the gap extends back to just about 2 seconds. It seems that it's a war of attrition at this point. Everybody just needs to do exactly what they have been doing, and we can keep it status quo, so to speak. But if any mistakes or anything upsets the apple cart, we might be looking at a huge change in the current running order between the top four. On a separate note, you mentioned that the racing has looked quite clean the entire time. This, I think, is the first race of this entire series that we have not seen a single safety car. That must be a relief for you over there sitting behind the wheel, waiting in case you are needed.
Chad, what's disappointing to? I had a full-on dream that I owned 2 of the safety cars, both liveries, both yellow and black. And for the first time since we unveiled this brand new safety car, we're unable to use it, which, keep in mind, I am so relieved, to say the least. It is a refreshing moment for us. Sadly, again, we did have to have a discussion with the drivers because of the past few events. I'm sure you've noticed that there are a lot of drivers missing. There's some that had gotten their bands or race bands, or some got quali bands, some that even have a serious band. So we are trying our best to keep the racing as clean as possible because we enjoy clean, hard racing, and that's just been the long and short of it from day one. So it does break my heart sometimes to see as a grid this small, but without enforcing the rules that we've implemented, it's gonna be difficult to maintain that status quo. So I'm looking forward to, again, not looking forward to seeing the safety car on the exception of the formation lap, but I do believe that in the future, with the discussions that we've had with our drivers, drivers from both GT Panama as well as Nova Racing, everybody does understand what the expectations are. That the racing is always better when it's clean but hard. With no race, bumping is racing. We understand that it is a war. We are fighting for points. We are fighting for a prize at the end of the season. But it's just keeping respect, keeping the racing clean, and having fun. That's just the long and short of the goal here at the JSRA. But as you did say, I am very relieved that no safety cars, but I am a little disappointed I'm not seeing it out there on the track, because I am a huge fan of the livery designed by our very own in-house designer, Kimani Eastman, down there in P9.
Absolutely, but yeah, no, I mean, it's been a much cleaner event, absolutely, and we do hope to see it continue that way. As Luis Daniel Velez, it seems, has finally gotten by Pommels. It may have been a mistake there from Pommels that promotes Daniel Velez up to P5, as those two have been tailing, much like the rest of the drivers, just keeping abreast of each other the whole time. But nobody yet able to make a move, and Eaton there getting a huge snap of overs there, and that's gonna cost him a bit of time. And with the charging Moss and Plummer behind, mistakes like that could see that P2 or possible P1 disappear, but he manages to keep it under control and continue on the way in that fight. Not much lost, it seems.
We did see Eaton having a few issues there yesterday with the CTCCs, losing out to Tim Stahl in the last few moments of the race. It is less than 4 minutes remaining, so I don't know if it's if you can credit it to tire wear. Is it fatigue? I'm not sure there. As he said, with 1.5 second gap, two are behind with charging Mr. Massive and Miss, let me say, Plummer. All we can hope for right now is just keeping a level head, keeping it cool. Not, I know what was you're saying yesterday. It's now hammer time. No, it was
desperation zone.
Desperation zone. So let's hope that doesn't come too hard in the closing stages of this race. But Eaton is putting on the pressure regardless, and has closed back that gap. So you can see that he has a pace. It's just this track, the orientation of it is just so tight that when you know what you're doing, you can, as I think he alluded to, Mr. King of Defense, Mr. Alonso, if you can put on that stage of defense and racing, then, P1 is just to be had. So
absolutely. And I see a driver swap there between Plummer and Massive, maybe a little bit of team orders. Raven given the go-ahead to try and cut into the deficit up ahead with about 3-ish laps to go, roughly, I would say. Maybe thinking about the championship. Eaton still desperately trying anything he can to try and get ahead of Estefano Barrera, but Barrera, like El Presidente pointed out, has been parking that car exactly where he needs to for this entire race. And this is still exciting to watch, because although there aren't drastic changes in position, it is just about seeing these drivers involved in these battles, as Mikhail Charles getting ahead of Pommels there, the two neck and neck going down the start finish straight. They're still side by side, and who is gonna blink first when we get into the braking zone for turn 1? Pommels on the inside, Charles on the outside. There's a bit of contact, and that sees Mikhail Charles going slightly off the road on the inside, but that's still fine. I think it's see, we can deal with incidents like that where there's a bit of a bump, but no driver drastically loses out in the grand scheme of the race. What we are trying to mitigate are those huge pile-up incidents that we have seen in the past. And going back to you saying that this is a small grid, I mean, this time last year we would have killed for a grid with 9 cars on it.
The growth of the JSRA, honestly, we can't complain, Bridget. And as we did say, quality over quantity. So yeah, you're right. I can't complain for it. We love the numbers. We love seeing the full grid. But at the end of the day, the quality is more important. We do notice that Miss Plummer has dropped that gap a little bit closer down to about 1.2 seconds, while Mark Anthony is still 2/10 off of Estefano, breathing down the back of that yellow, red, and blue Columbia Noble Racing Audi TCR car. So, is this, as you said, desperation time? We are linking it. Looks like they'll have 2 laps to go. It's teetering a dummy to just make Estefano think a little bit extra. You never know, but he's a 10th below, 2 laps to go. Can it happen, Chad? This is your commentator's curse. Communication.
Yeah, no, absolutely. At this point, it is looking like Eaton has felt the desperation zone come his way, and I have seen him take a few looks here and there trying to get Estefano out of position, but Estefano is, to use a word that may not sound very pleasant, unflappable at the moment, able to...
Unflappable. Write it down, ladies and gentlemen. Save it, we use it, and we post it for the Christmas cards. Unflappable, the new term of the JSRA.
Yeah, no, he has been holding on this entire race, has not put a foot wrong, and has kept it just exactly where he needs to. He may not have the pace advantage that he normally enjoys, but showing that sometimes the pace may not be there, but if you have the racecraft, you are able to hold on, just positioning that car in all the right places, keeping Eaton at bay. And Eaton, full props to him as well. He has managed to stay well in the slipstream of Estefano for virtually the entire race, and in doing so has left himself in position. But as I am saying this, right there in his rearview mirrors, Raven Plummer is looking for the chance to move herself up one more position, getting ahead of Mark Anthony Eaton, or possibly taking the top step once again. But at the moment, it is still Estefano's race to lose. We are on the final lap, ladies and gentlemen, and the cars are lined up in a train of 4. This is familiar to the first race. 4 cars, nose to tail. Who is going to come out on top? Barrera has led the entirety of this race. Can anybody unseat him? Will Mark Anthony Eaton hold on to P2? Will Raven Plummer be looking to make a move here late? We have about 9 corners left to answer that question, and we will see who stands on the top step when the checkered flag falls in a few corners time. At the moment, Estefano still in the driver's seat for the top spot. All of the drivers behind have some work to do in order to take that away from him, but he is still managing to hold on ever so nicely, diving to the inside there, trying to position the car, making it difficult for Mark to sit in the slipstream. Eaton with the inside line, the two make contact, and that sees Raven Plummer going through. Eaton managing to hold on for P2. I am not sure how we judge that incident. The stewards will have to look at that one, but Barrera comes out worse for wear, finds himself down there in P4. Raven Plummer will come across the line to take P2. I see Eaton backing out as if to say that may have been on him, so he gives Estefano P3, comes across the line in P4 just behind. Daniel Velez will take P5, Pommels to come across the line in P6. Mikhail Charles, not quite having the same success he did in the first race, will take P7, and it's good to see that Joshua Brady and Kimani Eastman have managed to put enough fuel in the car to get them to the checkered flag. This time around, Joshua Brady will come across the line in P8, and Eastman just behind will be the last person to finish the race. And Yeah, no, hard racing there from Barrera and Eaton. Barrera, I think that was the one time he put a foot wrong. Eaton saw the gap, tried his best to take it, didn't quite work out. A little bit of contact there, and the stewards will have to take a look at that one to see if anything is to be done. But overall, a good, hard, clean race for the most part, with the exception of that one blemish. But all drivers managing to bring it home. Barrero comes across the line in P3, Eaton having given back the position after that incident. Raven Plummer, in all of this, still finds herself on the top step of the podium with Mr. Massive P2 once again. Estefano Barrero P3, Eaton in P4. Almost a mirror of the first race, the exception being Mikhail Charles.
Again, brilliant driving from everybody all around. It's racing. We understand how it goes. You know, you can't put a foot wrong here or there. Little bit disappointed, but as you said, it's racing. Well deserved to the podium. Epic drive from those three right there, especially to Mark Anthony and to Estefano Barrero, one of my favorite persons to involve in racing. Honestly, since we met in the Caribbean versus Colombia event last year or the year before, he's just been an amazing person. So sorry to see that happen, but nonetheless, racing is racing. Excellent race from all parties involved, and again, thank you for having me here in the commentary box. I will head over back to the safety car or the steward's room so you can enjoy the last few minutes with the drivers.
Absolutely, and I think I will be starting with Estefano Barrero there, taking P3 in that second race of the evening. Estefano, can you hear me?
Yes, of course.
Well, a brilliant race from you, that second race. Unfortunate in the first race with the drive-through penalty, but that recovery in the second race was looking good up until the last few corners there. What are your thoughts on how that incident unfolded?
Yeah, I cannot say too much about it. I mean, things that happen in the race, and I'm very sad about it because I held this guy for like 25 minutes just for this. But yeah, we will come back stronger. This race was so boring because I made a mistake before the race start, so I had to be hot lapping for the entire race, unfortunately.
Yeah, and well, a brilliant showing there in the second race. Was it that you think Eaton may have had a bit more pace and it was just great defense from you, or was it just you did everything you needed to do up until that point and that you were on for the top spot?
I really didn't have pace for this round because I didn't practice too much, so I just focused on not making any mistakes, and it worked really well. So I'm happy about it.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations on holding on for P3 there, Estefano, and good luck in the remaining rounds.
Thank you so much. Thanks for hosting. We will come back stronger in the next round.
Absolutely. So that was Stefano Barrero from Nova Racing that we had just spoken to. Next up, we will be talking to Mikhail Charles, P3 in the first race, not looking so hot in the second race. What went wrong, Mikhail?
I honestly have no idea. I just had no pace in the second race. Like everything felt so good in the first race, and I did the same thing in the second race, just no pace. I don't know.
Well,
honestly, should have let my teammates pass earlier too.
Well, you still gave them the go ahead when you needed to, but that first race you're involved in quite a few battles. Managed to hold on to P3. How was the racing overall?
Well, yeah, it was fun. I can't really remember what happened in the first race. What I remember is we were fighting, and then some people went off, and I just gained position. So it was fun. It was pretty easy.
Fair enough.
That's it.
Fair enough. Well, yeah, good racing. A bit of an incident there with you and Pommels in the dying stages of the second race. How did that all unfold?
Honestly, I'm looking at it now and it's just so weird. I was on the inside. I stayed on the inside. He just tunes into me. So I have no clue.
Well, yeah, we'll leave that one up to the stewards, but nonetheless, good racing today, Mikhail, and congratulations on the P3.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Okay, I believe we have two more drivers to talk to, so I think I'm gonna take Kurt Moss next. Okay, I think Moss not quite available yet, so we will start with Raven Plummer, who took victory in both races. Raven, are you with me?
I am.
Well, congratulations. There are a pair of victories for you out of the race this evening, although the second one kind of just fell into your lap, it seems.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on the second race? That one seemed to be more trying than the first.
Yeah, the second race was a lot of fun. Well, for both sessions, I never truly felt I was operating at my peak, so I was making, kind of sloppy driving choices, and I let Kurt pass me. We got the move done, and that was one of the best moves I've ever done. I'll be honest with you, it felt like NASCAR. Um, and after that, a couple laps later, I believe sold Luis the dummy and got past him. He just a little bit too intimidated, went too wide, hit the gravel. Got to dispatch him for both me and Steven and Kurt eventually. Kurt initially, so that was fantastic. And as for that final incident on the last lap, I honestly was expecting something like that to happen. That's why I wasn't pushing up, trying to get my nose into the fight. They've been going at it for pretty much the entire race. I knew tensions were going to be high. I figured they're going to get desperate. They're going to put each other offline. I'm just going to come in and kind of vulture the positions after they mess up. And, well, it was quite a catastrophic mess up, but they messed up. I took the position, and that's all I needed.
Well, yeah, no, smart strategy there playing that one the way you did. But overall, a great event for you. The first race, it seemed you just managed to stave off the early attack from Kurt, and then it was smooth sailing from there.
Yep, I will say that the start to race one, I had my pit limiter on. I went around the final corner. I looked back in my mirrors. Everyone's a couple car lengths behind me. I wasn't sure what happened, so I started and then I lifted a little bit, and I lifted too much, to be quite honest with you, because that was totally an unfair advantage, and I almost lost position because of that lift, but everything ended up working out, so I'm happy with the results.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations again, Raven, and good to see the results, and we hope to see it continue in future.
Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so that is it for the event here this evening, and we will be coming back at you with the final round for now in this series at Sydney Motorsport Park next Saturday. We will then have a break week following that, which should be filled by our endurance team to be confirmed. But yeah, no, definitely stay tuned. Porsche Cup will be coming your way shortly thereafter. And once again, if you have been tuning in through the Sportsmax app or on our YouTube channel, we thank you for your viewership. And if you wish to stay abreast of all things JSRA, be sure to follow us on our social medias, Instagram at JSRA Official and on Facebook at the Jamaica Simulation Racing Association. Once again, we would like to thank our sponsor, Ceramic Hair, as well as our streaming partner, the Sportsmax app, for their contributions to the JSRA. We definitely appreciate having them as part of our journey to take simulation racing to an elite level here in Jamaica. thank you for being a part of our stream here this evening, and we hope to see you next time out. I have been Chad Dillon, and this is good night, ladies and gentlemen.
We are coming up to as
man, so
there is a run.
outside. Oh yeah.
Let's try the switcheroo.
We all know what this is gonna be. You came and failed the test, you met the best, expected chess, but got monopoly. I came and bought you out, I knocked you out, I cropped you out with no apologies. I am the hope, the heart, the faith, the spark, the one who will fulfill the prophecy. I just been counting, never lounging, climbing up mountains, bouncing back. Step in the ring, about to step back. They'll learn hot when I get on the track. I like it louder than most. Watching all these shit just buy down to the goat. If I can't decide, I'ma probably get both. We done celebrate, but right now I'm a toast. Resurrected
Here is Eastman going side by side with Jaden Harrison. Jaden Harrison took him on the inside, but Eastman says no and closes the door. But here he is now about to lose 2 positions heading into the penultimate corner. Now coming through the final corner, can Moss get past Eastman as well?